Fall means autumnal breezes and vibrant earthy colors. It also means fall allergens, bacteria, and particles coming into your home. So swap out your old HVAC air filter with a Filtrete air filter from a retailer near you. Let's clear the air.
Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 136 called Michelle L. So before we get started, I just want to remind you guys that Fertility Rally Live is happening on October 23rd. It's an all-day virtual event that empowers you, educates you. We have two keynote speakers. We have Jacqueline Mish from Survivor, and we have Camille Guadike, who is an amazing actress you might know from The Rookie and various other TV shows. They're both going to do separate keynotes and talk about their fertility journeys. We have 2 panels. We have 16 breakout sessions. We have giveaways all day. Lots of interactive chat, lots of great empowerment and celebration and just sisterhood. So definitely check it out. If you want to get tickets, you can go to the link in our bio at Fertility Rally on Instagram or the link in my bio at Infertile AF Stories on Instagram. So it's on the 23rd. And the best part is that even if you can't make it live, you can still watch everything for 30 days afterwards. So all ticket holders have access to the event for 30 days. You can dip back in and out and watch whatever you want when you want to watch it, or you can repeat stuff. It's that good. So we really hope to see you guys there. We've been working really hard on it and gathering the best people to come together, and it's just going to be an awesome day. So hope to see you at Fertility Rally Live. Thanks. Okay, I want to tell you about my guest today, Michelle. She is an incredible woman, and she went through IVF in the 90s. So she's going to talk about what she went through then and how much things have changed between then and now. Not a lot of people were talking about it back then. And spoiler alert, she does have a son now. And she wrote to me in an email that the triumphant embryo starts college in September. So he's in college now. And it's just really great to hear everything that she went through. And, you know, just how this community and how this medical field has changed in the last 20 years. Michelle now works for Donor Concierge and Tulip, and she's going to talk about that too. So she is in third-party reproduction, and it is just a great story. So without further ado, this is Michelle's infertility story. Michelle, thank you so much for doing this today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here, Allie.
Thank you so much. So we're just going to kind of dive right into it. And the first sentence of what I wrote, you said, at 31, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure, and that my best chance of achieving a pregnancy was to go straight to donor eggs. So let's start there.
Okay.
How did you get there? I know you and your husband had been trying for about a year, right? And then you got to that point.
Yeah. So we'd been trying, and, I felt like I was young. I was living in the UK, and I had an exciting career in television, and it's like, okay, things are, moving along. This is my life. Next, let's go for the baby. Mm-hmm. And things weren't working. So we thought, okay, well, let's go and get things checked out. So I was expecting them to say, my husband's a little bit older than me, not a huge amount, but a few years. And I thought, okay, well, they'll say, and I'd been working a lot too. So I was expecting, meaning I was maybe a little bit stressed and, maybe not taking care of myself. So I was expecting the doctor just to say, oh, everything's great. This is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. So I remember so clearly sitting in her office, and that's what she said to me. She said, well, your FSH is really high. There's nothing you can do about it. You might as well skip IUI or IVF and go straight to donor eggs. And I was just totally floored. And
I feel like you would have been like gobsmacked, right? Like what? It just came out of the blue?
And it sure did. I mean, at 31, I, first of all, hadn't really thought about my fertility, didn't think I would have a problem, and had never heard of donor eggs.
Okay. Yeah.
So to be told this, and I think maybe, and it's funny because I've actually talked to my doctor since, and I relayed this story of her bluntness. And I was angry for a really long time about that.
Interesting. What did she say?
She said, I couldn't give you false hope. And I have to say now, okay, so this is over 20 years later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I look back and I think she was absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have, I think that if somebody had said, well, you can keep trying, I would have had false hope. And I think she was right in being blunt. It was a hard realization to come to, but I'm really appreciative of her now looking back.
Was your husband with you at the time, or was it just you in the doctor's office?
He was with me at the time. We'd both taken a couple of hours off work to go to this appointment. And after we'd had blood tests and investigations, and actually I hadn't had any investigations. I'd only had the blood tests.
Mm-hmm.
And we both just looked at each other. And then I remember walking out of a hospital setting, and looked at each other and goes, well, I got to go back to work. And I walked out, and I happened to run into some of his friends, and I just burst into tears when I saw them.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that day just is seared in my mind.
Oh, totally. It's like those pivotal moments of your life will never be forgotten. Did you know what FSH even was, and what like premature ovarian failure was? Have you heard of that?
I had no understanding of what FSH or premature ovarian failure. I'd never heard of any of those things. Mm-hmm. I didn't know any friends who'd had IVF. So, and also in those days, because we're talking in the late 90s, mm-hmm. There weren't the online forums, and there was one actually, but there wasn't a lot of talk about this stuff. Nobody got together and discussed their IVF. There weren't bloggers. There was really no support.
Completely. Even when I went through this like 9 years ago, I felt like there was nothing. So I can't even imagine 20 years ago how much of a lack of resources there were. So what did you do? Like, where did you turn for research and support?
Well, I turned to an online forum I found. I think it was called Fertile Thoughts. I don't even know if it's still going, but it was the
OG Fertile Thoughts. We'll have to see if it's still around.
I think it is. I think it's gone through a couple of different incarnations, but honestly, it was an amazing resource for me because I could actually find people who were going through the same thing, and I got to learn all the lingo like TTC mm-hmm. and mm-hmm. 2-week wait and all these things that I could actually find out information. And I was a journalist at the time, so I could find out information about what it was I was going through. I think in some ways I maybe dig too deep. Mm-hmm. I sort of took what that doctor said to me and said, well, screw you. I don't believe anything you're saying. And really? I am going to do this on my own without donor eggs.
Interesting. Okay. So what was it just the lack of not knowing what, the donor egg situation, or was it that you didn't want to not have your genetics involved, or like, what was the resistance?
I think the resistance was I hadn't even been given a chance to try. Mm. Her suggestion of just going straight to donor egg was something I'd never even thought about, because here I was planning this child that I was going to have from my genetics with my husband. And so I think in some ways that sort of gave me a big push to say, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to use my genetics.
Right. Okay. Another thing that you wrote that I thought was interesting, you said you were told that you were in perimenopause, and you said, all I heard was menopause. I'd never heard of peri anything. And I love that you say that, because I'm the same way. Like, even with the acronyms that you were just talking about, like, I've never heard of any of this stuff. I had secondary infertility. I had never heard of that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right. And I look back now of all the things that I know now, and I wish I'd known then, but perimenopause, I didn't know it lasts for 10 to 15 years. Like I said, I just heard menopause. So I think what it was I didn't get the context of how this all fit together. So FSH, my FSH was 19. And to me, I'm like, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to eat well, and I'm going to stop drinking coffee, and I'm never going to touch a glass of alcohol again. And as she said, and she's right, FSH is a really good indicator of your ovarian reserve, and you can't really do much to change it. Mm-hmm. I still don't know if there's anything else I could do, but my FSH never went below, I think, 12, which, in a medical setting, she did the right thing by advising, giving me the advice of using donor eggs. But in the end, I didn't actually use donor eggs, but I did go through many rounds of IVF.
Right. So yeah, let's talk about that. So when the doctor gave you that diagnosis and then you were like, screw you, I'm going to try to do this on my own. What happened? You said you started with an IUI?
I started with an IUI, which got nothing.
And so what was that like 20 years ago? Like, do you know if that's changed a lot?
With the IUI?
Yeah. Like, have you talked to anybody who's done one recently and like compared notes or anything? I'm just curious because I feel like this is such a quick moving field of medicine, and the technology, the breakthroughs are so like fast and furious. It seems like.
I don't think anything was different. I don't think we had much hope going into it, but they actually wouldn't do an IVF until we did an IUI that failed. So that was like, there was protocols in place that we couldn't progress to the next stage until we did this. And we were self-paying for everything. So it was kind of like a big waste of money. But on the other hand, I just kept thinking, well, you never know.
You never know. Exactly.
So
I feel that way about, I mean, I know people who have had successful IUIs and, so you never know.
Right. But it didn't work. And I kind of knew at the back of my mind that it wouldn't. So then we were kind of freed from that what if to move on to IVF, which was, as a whole nother experience.
So were you with the doctor who gave you the diagnosis, or was she like an OB/GYN and she referred you to an RE, or was she an RE or?
She was an RE.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'd already progressed to, fertility specialist.
Okay. So did you stick with her or did you go somewhere else?
I did stick with her. Yes.
Okay.
I kind of, despite her being blunt, I still had a lot of confidence in her and her team. So I didn't have the wherewithal to kind of start researching other clinics or anything like that. And I thought, okay, she's a specialist. I'm going to trust her.
So even though she had advised to do donor eggs, she would do whatever you wanted to do. Like, you have the choice, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think she understood that I wasn't mentally prepared to accept donor eggs. So, and now because I work in third-party fertility, I understand that you have to go through that IVF. You have to go through those things and get to a point where you acceptance.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I really understand that now, because I can tell, like, I work with a company that helps people find egg donors and surrogates. And I can tell immediately if somebody's not ready for this point, because they're still hanging on. If you're hanging on to your genetics, it's going to be a really hard transition to accepting the possibility of having a child, a different possibility. So having a donor conception.
Yeah. I would love to unpack that a little bit more as your story goes on. So let's put a pin in that thought, but we'll circle back to that. So tell me what happened with you guys next. So you started with IUI failed, then IVF.
Yep. Then we went on to IVF. And in those days they only did 3-day embryos. So I didn't have no sort of PGT or anything like that. I didn't know anything about any kind of, I don't even know if it was possible back then to do PGS or PGT.
Okay.
So yeah, first IVF, we're all excited. We tell everybody, and, I did all my drugs. I can remember actually taking my husband's sperm in a, okay. I gotta back up here.
All right, paint this picture.
Okay. Paint this picture of sperm analysis. And we're told it has to be, he either has to come in or you can do your business at home. So we're like, okay, let's do the business at home. And I'll take it in, because he had to go somewhere. And I got the jar and I put it down my shorts and I jumped on my bike and I rode through London traffic to get to the hospital. And I remember laughing to myself and like shouting, like, get out of the way. I've got my future children down my pants. And awesome. I remember I raced up and I just plunked it down on the nurse's station. And go, there you go. And they just looked at me like, okay, thanks.
You're like, nailed it.
Yeah. I nailed it. Here you go. So that was one funny incident. And
that's great.
And then we started doing the IVF, and I was pretty good about, making sure I did all my shots. And I just remember being in a pub and doing my shots in the bathroom, and just, it becomes like a normal part of your life, doesn't it? All the shots.
Oh yeah. There's so many good stories of people doing shots in like crazy places.
Yeah. So yeah. And that one failed. And I probably could reach back into my memory and know how many eggs I got and how many fertilized and how many didn't work. But I think I had some embryos left over for a frozen embryo transfer, and that one didn't work either. So then, so then we went on to round 2.
Okay.
Round 2, actually, again, it's so weird to me that these memories, like it was 20 years ago, and I still have exact memories of the phone call I got when I'm in the park from the embryologist just saying, you only got 2 eggs. Yeah. Or I think I got 8 eggs and only 2 fertilized, and they're not very good, and it was like, so we went into the second transfer, or maybe it was the third transfer, but without any hope, really, to be honest. And then I think I've got to backtrack here a little bit, because we, again, getting those phone calls from people all the time who knew your story, like friends and family saying, well, are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? It was this progression of time where every IVF I did, I told fewer and fewer people.
Yes, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
I think that the pressure, I just remember feeling this pressure of this disappointment. I was letting so many people down. I want, my mother-in-law wanted a grandchild, my parents, my friends, and I started to think it wasn't about me, it was about everybody else. And it became kind of, I felt sort of really out of control at one point, I remember. So
did you feel like you were on like a hamster wheel at a certain point, where it was just like, you're like doing the retrieval, doing the transfer, doing the retrieval, doing the transfer?
I kept trying different things that, I kept looking back and thinking, okay, well, I had a cup of coffee on the third day. That was probably why it didn't work. Or I should have done this. Or so every time, I was in a high pressure job, and I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to just take some time off. So I would take 6 months off before the next IVF cycle. And honestly, nothing made a difference.
Right. How was it going with your husband? Like, how was he feeling through all of this?
He was amazing. He was very supportive. It was hard because, of course, there's that dynamic of, well, whose fault is it? And he never brought that up with, we were in it together. And I think it really strengthened our relationship. I think we both wanted it. We didn't really talk about how much we wanted it, but we both wanted it. And we were both equally as disappointed when it didn't work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, he wasn't somebody I didn't want him to do my shots or anything like that. He did come to the retrievals, obviously. Actually, he came to the first or maybe the second, but not the third retrieval. That's the next part of the story.
Okay. All right. So, but you guys are still pretty young at this point, right? Like mid-30s, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're trying all these things. One of the other things you wrote about that I wanted to ask you is you had a psychic surgery.
Yeah. So I was probably 2.5 years into IVF treatment by this point. And I tried, you take all the advice from all your friends. So it's like, oh, you have to visualize your baby. You have to take this. I was going to acupuncture once a week. I was having massage therapy, all these different things. I went to a special mineral woman who studies your minerals. And I was taking all these different micro mineral nutrients, things like that, so I was trying, I don't want to say I was obsessed with trying everything, but I did have the old, crystals next to the bed and fertility symbols, all the things that you think, well, why not?
Yeah,
give it
I think
try.
So many of us have been there. Exactly.
Of course. And so some friends and I, we went to Glastonbury, which is in the southwest of England. Supposed to be a very spiritual place. And we stayed we went for a weekend kind of retreat where I was kind of happy and, relaxed, glad to be out of the city, and stayed with a couple called Isis and Argon.
Of course.
Of course.
It sounds perfect.
And so their prescription for the weekend for us was to do some psychic surgery. And I just had a massage, and I remember laying on the bed, and we were all kind of giggling and laughing because it felt really kind of slightly ridiculous, but I'm kind of into that stuff. So I was like, okay, good. Let's do it. Not what, why not? And then I had this immediate strange reaction of the hands kind of being held over top of me, not even touching me. And I had this strange, and I absolutely burst into tears.
Whoa.
And felt this kind of release. I can't explain it.
Whoa.
I'm a believer, but I'm also a skeptic at the same time.
Same. So, yes. What happened? What did they do?
I don't know what he did, but it just like, they kind of go into past lives, and I won't, it's a little bit graphic, but I've learned I can't pinpoint one thing that helped, that made it work.
Mm-hmm.
But going there and maybe just releasing some emotions was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes it's like an energy block or something like that just helps to move that energy around. And who's to say exactly? There's no way to tell exactly one thing, but I feel like with all of this stuff, if it makes you feel better and if it makes you less stressed and gives you a little hope if you need it, then I say, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I would have tried everything. I've said before, like if someone was like, you have to wake up at 3:33 in the morning and stand in the middle of the highway on one foot, eating a banana, like wearing a monkey suit, I would have been like, done. Where's the monkey suit? Like, let's go.
Some read self-help books. Others use meditation. At New Balance, it's believed that peace can be found with a run. The lessons learned while running your race are a blueprint for overcoming obstacles and achieving balance in life. Go beyond the run at newbalance.com.
I agree, but I also think you have to be careful because it puts I don't want to say it's not blame, but it's easy to blame yourself for not accepting these paths, or these things that you should do in order to make it work.
Totally.
I think I've learned that I don't want to say to people, well, you have to visualize your baby. Well, that's not hard. That's not easy to do when somebody says you're not going to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point where I got to a point where I just actually moved on.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, our final IVF cycle, I think we'd had a couple of, frozen embryo transfers, 3 or 4 IVFs or the IUI.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both done. And we actually thought, our life is good no matter what happens. And if we don't have a child, then we're going to be okay. And it was a really, and we hadn't told anybody we were having our final IVF. We'd kind of run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
My husband actually wasn't even he was working in Ireland at the time. So when he had to give his contribution, I didn't even see him that day. I had to go in to do the egg retrieval. I hadn't seen him for 2 weeks.
Amazing.
He flew in, went to the clinic, did his business and left. And then I went in.
Oh my God.
So we were like, okay, see ya. Let's the fingers crossed.
Right. Wow.
So we sort of just didn't tell a soul that we were doing another treatment, and we moved on at that point. And I think, again, I might have my facts mixed up, but then that cycle didn't work. And then we did a frozen embryo transfer. And then at that point and that was like 5 months later, we were just like, I don't think we even told anybody that we were trying again. And it was,
So do you remember like the numbers, just out of curiosity, like how many retrievals you did? Like what was the tally of what you went through? Your fertility resume, as it were.
Yes. 1 IUI, 3 IVFs, must have been 2 frozen embryo transfers because the second IVF, we didn't get enough embryos to freeze. So it was the final IVF. I had it in December. I remember we didn't work. We moved on. We were like, okay, we're done. And we're like, oh, we've got 5 embryos left. What are we going to do? Because we were both like, oh, we just kind of decided, okay, it's not going to work, whatever. And again, as I said, they did 3-day embryos then. So when they finally gave us the option, I was kind of prepared. 5 months later, I thought, okay, well, let's do this frozen embryo. Let's just get this over with. I just need to move on with my life. And so they gave me the option. They said, we can thaw all 5 and pick the best 3. But the other 2, we're going to have to let expire. Or we can just pick some and hope it works. And then if you have some left over, we'll do it again. And we both looked at each other and we said, you know what, let's just go for it. If it's not meant to be, we'll just move on. So again, I think they couldn't refreeze the embryos in those days.
Okay. Yep.
So they chose 3 embryos. They put them all back in.
So they put 3 inside of you.
They put 3. Yeah.
Wow.
That was kind of the norm then, to put at least 2 or 3. They didn't know that single embryo transfer was actually a better outcome.
So interesting. Like we were saying, how much things change. Yeah. Okay.
I think I must have had I think I had thin lining or I don't know, even remember what the problem was. Oh, I know the last thing they did too on this was the only time they did assisted hatching, because I had to have had 3 failed IVF cycles before they would do that.
Okay.
So, again, I look back and I think, had they done the assisted hatching on the first one, I might have had 4 or 5 kids by now.
Wow. So what does that entail?
Assisted hatching is when they actually put a little hole in the embryo, in the shell. This is what I've learned. I'm probably not explaining it correctly.
Okay. Yeah. I should say this is not a medical podcast. This is just friends talking.
They explained that the embryo wasn't multiplying, so it wasn't breaking out for whatever reason. So this helps the embryo to divide and conquer.
Okay. So cool that they can do that.
So one day, a couple weeks after my transfer, my husband was in Australia working. So he wasn't even around. I always like to say wasn't even there when I got pregnant.
That's a good line.
I walked across the road and I thought, I feel funny. Like, I feel weird. I feel like I got this weird taste in my mouth and I feel all dizzy. And so I thought, there's no way. There's no way. So I did the pregnancy test and it was, I saw the line and I'm like, holy crap.
How many days after the transfer?
I think it must've been like 11.
Okay. Wow.
Maybe 11 days. And I remember I called him in Australia and I woke him up and he goes, what? He's a very dry British humor. He goes, did you wake me up for that? I went, yeah, I woke you up for that. Of course I did. He's like, oh, okay, great. Okay. Good night. I'm going back to sleep.
Oh my God.
But that was pretty, I sort of thought, okay, I did it. We did it. I couldn't believe it. It was still too good to be true, and I think that's a lot. I hear that a lot from people. And I got to admit, I still feel like that sometimes. I just sent my son to college.
I love it. In the thing you wrote, you said the triumphant embryo starts college in September.
Yeah, exactly.
Another great line. You must be a writer.
Maybe.
Yeah. So okay. So wait, you got the line. Did you go in for a beta test or like, what was the process back then?
You know what? I don't think so.
Okay.
I can't remember that far back now.
Yeah.
That's when it all becomes a blur because I kind of moved on from IVF and I moved into a different kind of mode of thinking, but I don't think we did a beta test, but
okay.
I really don't know.
Did you have the anxiety of pregnancy after loss where it was like you felt nervous, or did you feel once you saw the line, you felt okay and like it was going to work out?
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest. I think that anxiety has stayed with me even till now. And I don't say that lightly because I think the first few years of course, the pregnancy, it never felt quite real. It was hard to accept that this was actually, I'm going to be part of that club. I think I always in the back of my mind thought something's going to happen. It's not something terrible is going to go wrong. And I don't mean that I'm a fatalist in that way, but I guess I wanted to prepare myself for disappointment. So, and not, so I didn't go through I had a great pregnancy. I didn't go through my pregnancy thinking in a negative way, but I think always in the back of my mind, I kept thinking this is too good to be true and something's going to happen. And I hate to say it, but it's actually carried through into parenting too. And I think it's only now I'm like, I've just breathed a sigh of relief this weekend, getting my son off to college, thinking, wow, I did it. Right.
Does he know the story?
He knows the story. He started asking about where babies came from when he was about 4. And I explained it to him. And I explained how we had a little help. And then now he got so bored of the story. He says, oh, stop talking about it.
Right.
Stop.
Right. I know. I'm curious to see. My son is 5.5 now. So he doesn't quite, we haven't talked about that at all, but I'm curious to see what it'll be like when he's older, when he knows that he was an IVF baby. Not that it's probably going to be very common. I'm sure there's so many at his school even right now, so yeah. I wonder what his take will be though.
Yeah. And I can't even bring it up now, but I did actually I kept a diary from when I started IVF treatment. So I have a lot of my thoughts written down of the disappointments and the triumphs and during the pregnancy too. And then I've tried to keep it up as he's grown older. So I will be giving that to him when he's not embarrassed by me.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I thought you were going to say you were going to publish it, but should do both.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So then you had your son and, and he's what, 19 now or 18?
18. He's 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me how you transitioned into this third-party fertility world.
Sure. So I was working as a television producer in the UK, and we moved our family over here to the US for my husband's work and for other reasons. But I couldn't do TV anymore because it just wasn't conducive to my work, to my family life. And I kind of thought, you know what, I've spent so much time and money getting this little guy in my life. I'm going to spend some time with him. So I was very lucky that I spent a lot of time at home with him. I did do a little bit of work before that. But so when we moved to the US, I was like, okay, so I need a job. I got some little jobs. And so what am I going to do? So I answered an ad in Craigslist. One day I was actually working I actually quit a job for the first time in my life because it was really not fulfilling. Never done that before. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to get a job that's meaningful, that's near my house, and that's flexible so that I can, it's family friendly. So I opened up Craigslist and I saw a job for a case manager at a fertility company, and it was in my town. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do that.
Wow.
And I actually remember, and I remember writing out the cover letter, and then I had an interview with Donor Concierge with the founders, and that was almost 8.5 years ago. Did
you say in your cover letter what you had been through?
I did.
To a certain degree.
I did. I thought, you know what, you got to bare your soul sometimes. So I said, I think the requirements for the job were being good with people and liking pets. Because they had a lot of pets. So I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
And you're like, and as a bonus, guess what?
Right. So I got introduced to the world of donor conception and third-party fertility, which I really, and especially in the US, is a completely different approach than other countries. It's much more of a business here, and there's agencies, and there's, fertility. It's fertility clinics that are bigger, and they have in-house donor programs, and there's surrogacy is illegal here. And so I learned a lot from Gail Sexton Anderson, who's the founder of Donor Concierge. And we just, I kind of think, well, the rest is history. I worked with fertility people who are looking for donors. I got to know, I understood where at the point that they were at, and I didn't use a donor in the end, but I felt like I knew what they were going through.
Isn't it so interesting though, Michelle, that your initial diagnosis was donor eggs, and now look what you're doing. It's like a full circle. I'm sure I'm not the first person to point that out, but I think that's just so cool and interesting.
It is. And had I known then what I know now, it's like, oh, that's why that happened. Okay. Okay. Now I can reflect back and think, okay, I'm a big believer in things happening for a reason. And
same.
And I think that's what it is. And so I got into a field of a group of professionals, and I have to say, not just in our company, but all the agencies, all the fertility clinics, everybody's so passionate about this. And really, we all work together. I think it's the only industry I've ever worked in that everybody's friends on Facebook, and we actually, we check in with each other, even if we're competitors.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. I agree. There's so many people that have gone through it, and then it's become their job, like with you and with me and Blair, my co-founder of Fertility Rally. And I never thought I would be in this industry either, but here I am. So tell me a little bit more before we wrap up about Donor Concierge, what you guys do, and Tulip as well. And then I would love for you to tell everybody where to find you guys and how to get more info.
Yeah. So Donor Concierge is a third-party fertility concierge company. We help clients from all over the world and from all backgrounds. So whatever your family situation, we're here to help people kind of get through this journey. So when maybe they're a same-sex couple and they're looking for a donor and a surrogate, we have partnerships with all the different agencies out there, all the sperm cryobanks, all the donor agencies, all the fertility clinics, mental health. We're kind of your fixer, basically. So we help you get it done and get it done pretty efficiently and avoiding the problems that you might encounter if you were trying to do it on your own. So we're able to find people a donor and understand and help them to understand the process. So it's a lot about educating our intended parents about how it works, how this industry works. And I don't like to use the word industry because I feel like it's a field.
Right.
That community. But there is a lot of, people they've already spent a lot of money, and I think they're in a position of real vulnerability. So I feel like we're here to be their friend, for this period of time to help them.
I think that's so important because it is such an overwhelming process and it's so daunting. And with so many of these things, you're like, I don't even know where to begin. So you guys have done so much of the legwork already, and you can, hold their hands and walk them through it and talk them through it. And I think it's really, really cool.
And we can help them have realistic expectations too. I think that when you're looking for a donor, you're basically looking for yourself, and yourself, there's no such thing as a donor who's exactly like you. Everybody's a unique individual. And I think that people don't always realize there's a very small percentage of women out there who are okay with donating their eggs. I could not be a donor. I wouldn't want to give up my genetics to somebody else. There's so many amazing women out there who are willing to do that and willing to be a surrogate too. So we also help people with finding a gestational carrier. We do that within 4 weeks, which is pretty astounding because so if somebody was going to go to an agency, they may have to wait, 6 to 8 months, whereas we're gathering appropriate candidates from, nearly 70 different agencies. So we can kind of make that process happen a lot quicker.
Right. Okay. So tell us about Tulip too. I know you guys work kind of in tandem, right? Like
we do. So Tulip, we like to say, is the baby of Donor Concierge.
Okay.
TulipFertility.com is a site it's a family building platform. And we have got these wonderful partnerships with the agencies that we work with through Donor Concierge. They've agreed to allow us to showcase their donors in one place. So we actually, through Donor Concierge, we created a database of donors through all the different agencies for our case, basically so our case managers could work more efficiently. And we always wanted to have it available to the public. So we wanted to create a space that is really welcoming, that's really transparent, so that intended parents can feel comfortable and have the support they need. Maybe they don't want to come to Donor Concierge. They want to just be at home and look for a donor on their own and feel like they're having the support online. So Tulip, you log in, you subscribe, and you can look at all the donors yourself, and you can create a portfolio of your favorite donors. You can contact the agencies through the portal, through the platform. And so you can determine, you can ask the agencies all the questions you need to ask in order to secure somebody for you.
That's so great. Yeah, that's really cool.
And one of the things that we really wanted to provide on Tulip is the coaching support. So I think that's what makes us different, is that we have our team from Donor Concierge are experts in egg donation and surrogacy. So we can answer all those questions really quickly and efficiently and help guide them to the best donors online too. So if they have questions about, maybe they're looking at a donor that might we already know their clinic. So we already know that their clinic probably won't approve that donor. We can let them know, hey, maybe you should look at somebody who's a little bit younger, or, but in the end, it's an online do-it-yourself tool, basically.
Right. That's really cool. Because there's so much of this that feels out of your control. So that almost gives like this modicum of control where you feel like you don't have any, where it's like it's kind of back in your own hands a little bit, but guided too. So best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Tulip will include surrogacy on there, and links to other fertility professionals that people didn't know they needed, like attorneys and mental health professionals, genetic counselors, things like that. So that'll be Tulip phase 2.
So great. So before we wrap up, I'll tell everybody in the outro too, where to find you again and where to find Tulip and Donor Concierge. But can you just give maybe one last piece of advice to somebody who might be listening who is, possibly going down the donor road, what should they know? Like, I know you've said at one point, you would do things differently now, from 20 years ago, or you wish you knew then what you know now. What are a couple of those quick things?
I think there's a real movement for people to be more transparent. And I am really happy to see in the last couple of years, other intended parents coming forward and talking about their journey. So I guess my advice is, it may feel like you're alone, but you're really not. There's a lot of people out there who have used donors, whether it's sperm donors or egg donors, and surrogacy. And it's not a shameful thing. There should be no stigma attached to just creating your family in a different way. Our kids come to us as fully formed individuals who are, maybe even if they're genetically related to us, they are their own person. They're going to be their own person no matter how they came into your life. So I would say, there's a huge group of people out there who are in this professional community who are here to help you, and lean on them for advice. They know what you're going through.
All right, guys, thanks again for listening. And Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story. Definitely check out donorconcierge.com for more info, and tulipfertility.com as well. And again, Fertility Rally Live is happening on 10/23. We would love for you guys to join us. I said in the intro, even if you can't make it live, all ticket holders have access to all of our talks. We have over 30 speakers. We're covering everything under the sun. There's definitely something there for you, whether you're new to this community or you're in the midst of it, or you are a new mama or pregnant after infertility. We have all this support, all this education and empowerment, and tons of giveaways too. Also awesome swag bags with discounts and all this great stuff from fertility friendly and wellness brands. So we hope to see you guys there. Check it out on Instagram at Fertility Rally, or you can link to the tickets through my Instagram, Infertile AF Stories. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Talk to you soon.
If you've got a passion for pumpkin, you've got to get to Dunkin' and pick these up. Our new pumpkin cream cold brew. Smooth, bold cold brew topped with velvety pumpkin cream cold foam. And our delicious pumpkin spice signature latte. Rich espresso topped with whipped cream, caramel drizzle, and cinnamon sugar. And our perfectly pumpkin donuts, munchkins treats, pumpkin muffins, and more. That's how we pumpkin at Dunkin'. Pick your pumpkin at Dunkin', like our new pumpkin cream cold brew, pumpkin spice signature latte, and our perfectly pumpkin treats. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.
Hear that? Is that America cheering or a sausage patty sizzling to perfection? It's time to cheer for Egg McMuffin and fresh cracked eggs at McDonald's. It's time to wake up to the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and treat yourself to a real honest-to-goodness morning meal. Breakfast, it's on at McDonald's. Now enjoy a large iced coffee for just $2 and a breakfast sandwich to make a meal. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.